Good morning, good afternoon, Vasilis. It's so good to see you.
Hi.
Hi. It's been way too long since we've had a chance to connect, so I'm excited to do this with you today. So talk with me about, now, where are you located? Remind me where you are actually living.
I am living in Greece at the moment.
Yeah.
I used to live in the UK, in
Yes.
Brighton, but since the pandemic started, I relocated back home and I'm working online. And I made a few changes in my life since we spoke last time, but
Good changes?
yes, I think so. I think so. Challenging, but good, yeah.
Yeah. I was talking to Mikhail the other day, and he said that, looking at getting something going up and running live in the UK for gamification this year again. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that our paths can, yeah. So what have you been working on?
So lately, I have been working a bit less on gamification. Like I said, when the pandemic started, I was in the UK and I was doing my PhD in co-creating games for learning. So basically, I got a couple of students in rooms and they try to make games, mainly in the business school. So there would be games around project management or risk management. And then at the end, I would do interviews with them and ask them, what did you think about it? Is this a good way to teach people? Is this a good way to learn, basically? But when the pandemic hit, things got a bit hard for me because the university wouldn't give me enough teaching. So I had to go back and I started teaching online. And I was working on a research project on project management. But after a while, I don't know, I got really tired. I think
Yeah.
the pandemic really hit me and really made it tough for me to keep going with this PhD and the project. So I kind of stopped the PhD and then I started going to a graphic design school.
Wow.
So
Well,
I'm back.
you've always had a talent in that. I mean, that's your talent is strong in that area. So that's interesting. Yeah.
I think I have a
Good.
need to be creative. So I kind of like tapped into it a little bit more. I've been working in education for a long time. Since I started working, basically, I've been working in education and learning in various ways, gamification, non-gamification, university, high school. I've done quite a few things in education, but I needed something more creative. And I think the pandemic sort of like gave me this motivation, I'll call it,
Yeah.
to go more into it. So right now I'm doing a bit less on gamification, still working on some Lego Serious Play programs for businesses here in Greece. I might do something in Athens in a few months. And I'm kind of thinking on my second gamification book
Oh,
at the
nice.
moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I published one a couple of years back, like 2-3 years back. It was around designing gamification and games for learning. And I don't know, it went well, I think. At least in my books, it went well.
Yeah. Good. So,
So I'm thinking about writing a second one, like a second book. And that's kind of what I want to work on in terms of gamification. But I do
okay.
other things for the university as well online. But in
Yeah.
terms of gamification, I really want to go into the second book and explore some ideas that I have on gamification and how to use it for innovation mainly
Oh,
this time.
interesting. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
How were I know you don't have the research, the data pulled together, but what were you finding from your students as you were asking them about
Yeah.
the use of gamification? And it doesn't matter which direction you go with it. Like what were they saying? Yay, oh no, wait, yeah. What did you hear?
Well, I do have some data. We did do some experiments with them, like some workshops, and then we did ask them questions. So we do have some data.
Uh-huh.
So the outcome was positive overall. They liked it. I think what's really important is I was watching your video with Mikhail this morning actually, and I was thinking, how do you convince someone to go into gamification? You know, how do you convince a learning officer, a professor at the university, someone in, I don't know, middle, high education, whatever.
Right.
And I was just thinking that usually the way I got to do that was to tell them it's something new, it's something different, you know, try it out, maybe it works for you. And I think for the students, that's what got their interest. You know, oh, I've never done this, I've never learned with a game, you know, I'll go to this workshop, I don't get anything out of it, just, you know, an experience.
Right.
Because a lot of it was out of the curriculum, it was out of the course basically, and they volunteered to spend a couple of hours with us, you know. And that says something, you know, when you volunteer your time, it says that you get something out of it, or it looks like you're gonna get something out of it. So it was positive. They did like the new approach. They did like that it was something co-creative. There was this back and forth. There were less barriers. So they felt it was easier for them to ask us questions like the teachers, let's say. There wasn't this power dynamic that you get in a classical teaching room situation, right? Where the teacher is all knowing and there is this distance between, you know, the teachers and the student. So they felt we could get a little closer and it was a bit less informal in a good way. It wasn't like out of the context. We didn't talk about, you know, irrelevant things, but they can ask us questions. Because I think especially with the professors and people that they seem to have a lot of experience and they're a bit older than them, they get this feeling that, oh, I don't know nothing, and this person knows everything. How I'm going to ask her something? I'm going to seem foolish, you know.
Right.
Students have these fears in them, and I used to have these fears. And
Yeah.
so they really liked the co-creation element, and they really liked the playful element, you know. They really liked being creative, because I would ask them to make a game, basically, you know, can you make a game around project management? And then they would scratch their head going, how do I do that? but there were, you know, problems, let's say problems as well, you know, the time is an issue.
Yeah.
Sometimes it might take a lot of time to make something, you know, to come up with something. And sometimes you don't have that.
Right.
When, especially in a university or in a business, you might have specific amounts of time to do something, like a workshop or a seminar. I don't know how it is in the US in terms of the business schools, but in the UK, the classrooms are packed with people. You know, you get a seminar that supposedly is less people, and you still got 30 to 35 students.
Right. Right.
Which is a lot of people for one person, you know. So you got specific amounts of time. So that was an issue always. And when teachers would ask me, how do you gamify a classroom? That was always, you know, an issue. Time was one problem always. The motivation was another problem. You know, where do you motivate students to go? What do you motivate them to do? How do you do that? Sometimes the preconceptions I had about what students need and want were not right. You know, they were not correct. So they would give me feedback like, okay, this was a good idea in terms of a reward, let's say, in the game, but this would be better.
Interesting.
This would be
Right.
better. I had this challenge once when I used to work at the University of Brighton with Pete Jenkins. So I gave them the challenge, you know, present for 10 minutes without talking.
Oh, wow.
Silent presentation. Can you do that? You know, and in my head it was like, wow, amazing. I would like to have that challenge as a student, you know. And then no one did it. And at the end of the course, I asked, why did you not do that? You know, it was an option. They had different options for the challenges, you know, and no one went for that. And they said it didn't make a lot of sense, because in the end, we would get a mark for a presentation where we could talk. So why would I do a presentation 2 weeks before the final one without talking? You know, my presentation 2 weeks before the final presentation is basically like a small rehearsal.
Right.
So for me, it doesn't make sense. It sounded fun. We wanted to do it, but when we thought about it, we said, no, it's not worth sacrificing token.
Yeah, yeah, and that makes sense because there's only, they're under limited time. I think about the application for that, like in a workplace, everything has to be done so quickly. Do
Yeah.
we spend time on something that's not the final product? I think yes, because we could probably get some really good insights. Well, what if if we don't use words, how do we communicate the value or the message? But then with students, I know they feel that pressure for grades, right? That
They do have that.
ultimately
Of
that's
course.
and so
Of
I
course.
don't want to sacrifice anything that could impact. Yeah, I can see that. And on the other side, I could see, wow, I'm disappointed because it seems like that would have been great fun, but they only have this much time. Yeah.
And another feedback that we got sometimes was, for some of us that we don't feel comfortable creating, we need more restrictions. We need a stricter guideline.
Interesting.
So when the pandemic hit, I was looking into how can I make these workshops a bit more structured and a bit more, let's say, with more guidance from my side. Because when we started, I didn't really know how it would go. I've done it with businesses where they would create games, etc. But in terms of a learning situation and them making a learning game, I didn't know. So some of the students said I felt a little uncomfortable not having specific guidelines. Others loved it. So I think it's finding this balance in terms of the different personalities as well, thinking about who's in the classroom, how can I make different challenges for different people, but overall they found it exciting. And I would say the difficult part was how do I fit this into these 45-minute seminars, into this 1-hour lecture. This was usually the challenge we had at the university. It was how do I make something fun in a small amount of time? And usually it took some iterations,
Right. Well, and that is, that's one thing I've learned along the way is that is part of design. We can expect that there will be iterations. And even when we deploy and it's going well over a period of time, something changes, the audience changes, right? And so we do have to make iterations. I mean, we have our level 1 program for gamification design that we've been running I've been running it since 2012, 13. And I don't know, I've iterated it probably half dozen times over those years. Not that it was just that, it needs to be updated. It needs to be updated. And that's just part of the design. When we do live instruction, that can be faster than doing something online, something that's a digital game. So I just think about I did a webinar for a group this week. And so in my research for them, there's one data point that keeps really kind of just boinging in my head. And it's that by 2025, 3 out of 4 of our employees in the workplace are going to be millennials or the Gen Zs. 3 out of 4. And so we think about how they've structured their life, how they've personalized their lives, how they've had all these choices, the user interface they've had from their technology, their devices, how their teachers have interacted with them, and parents have been more like coaches rather than that distance between the professor, and you think about all these, that it's just different. And so I always think, it's not right, wrong, just different. And so what are we going to do to move towards what their expectations are? That's not such great work you were doing. So did you decide to walk away from the PhD then?
Yeah, I did, not because of the subject, but because of other, let's say, limitations or problems or issues that would come up. The main one was I had to work to pay for myself.
Yes.
I didn't have any funding for the PhD. I was looking for funding to focus on that. I didn't get it. I was turned down a few times. And then I don't know, like emotionally, I couldn't give anymore.
Yeah, I
And I
know.
decided for my well-being to put a pause on that for now. Maybe I will revisit in the future. I don't know. But I had to take a pause because it was taking a lot out of me. Um, I think the pandemic sort of helped with some of these issues and to prioritize our mental health and
Right. Right. I mean, I think people made decisions during and that we're not
yeah,
willing to walk away from, right? We've drawn
yeah,
new lines of balance in our lives and what that means for us. Before that, we were just, whatever it took, we're there, we're doing it. And
yeah,
that made
exactly.
us, it forced us to slow down and to
Yeah,
evaluate, where do I want these boundary lines? And
exactly.
yeah, that's really good. When you think about your graphic design, where do you want to focus that? What are you doing? What's your interest there?
So basically, the course is quite versatile. It's sort of like a vocational course. It's like a 2 year. It's not a university course that I'm doing. And yeah, there's a lot of input that I get from the teachers there. We do different things for web, for print, magazines, logos, books, this and that, different record covers for albums and stuff like that.
Interesting.
I think it's quite early. So I did used to do already for some friends some record covers and some book covers and stuff. So I'm quite used to doing that. But the web is also quite interesting. The web is, I think, interesting for gamification as well, because a lot of it has to do with, like you said, what do we see every day in our social media? What is the interface like? There's a lot of discussion around UI, UX. What is the experience? What is the interaction? So that is like something that connects to gamification as well.
Absolutely.
Which I found it interesting because I do have the gamification experience, and maybe there is something around that. Also, I was thinking maybe I'd like to do the design for my new book on my own, and maybe I would like my new book to come along with some playing cards. So during the
Nice.
pandemic, I did an online workshop with the Austrian Embassy in London. Great workshop. And the workshop was around innovation. And we played a game online where they would use these cards to get inspiration for products and services. So I'd like to design these cards and print them and give them out with a book if I can, at least in a digital form, if not printed. So yeah, maybe that's a project I wanna do. Design
Yeah.
my book and design these cards, and then get them out into the world, get some feedback. But yeah, basically this is one of the ideas, and something else is maybe work with a record label or something. I don't know. I'm still in the middle of the course, so I don't really know where this is going, and I still have to work part-time for the University of Southampton. I do online work for them, so I haven't really gone into the graphic design full time.
Right.
But in terms of marrying that with gamification, one thing that I'd like to do is this book. I'd like to design everything.
Yeah.
And gamify it if I can. How do you gamify a book, right? This is
Yeah, that's a really fun challenge. And you think about and how you could mix that with the web, right? So it's this
yeah,
it's a
exactly.
whole
Yeah.
blended, hybrid experience. I love it. We just designed a deck of cards for a weekend workshop we had done. It was gamified and game-based learning. So we did it based on the book that our Chief Motivation Officer, Jonathan Peters, wrote, Deliberate Fun. So we made this card deck, and they played with the cards to make a game. And then we brought it, we did that day one, and then day two, we brought it into the whole game of what is gamification design and how do you do it? So it was a lot of fun. We got really positive feedback on the cards, and I was so delighted with how they came out. We use a little company here in the States that does great work on a smaller scale. And I was just like, cards are so fun. People get cards, right? Nothing about cards is going to scare me. I can, there's, okay, what, how, and even different from, we played, we were just socializing that evening then, and we were playing a game, and there were a lot of dice involved and a lot of moving pieces. And I think, this is where like a cognitive overload can come in with a student, because I'm trying to understand, well, how are you counting, and what, I have to float, I have to plant, what am I? And that, even that simple little game, I could see where with students that fear can start setting in, where I need to learn something, but I'm even trying to figure out what the game is before I can learn something. So I just think it's that fine line that we walk of bringing that gameplay in. But if we're talking about learning, it's not about the game, it's about the learning. So how do we make that not easy? I'm not talking about just making it easy, but just simple, so that we can understand it and feel confident to keep moving. And then of course there's more experienced people that would be willing to take a deeper challenge, but every student is different. The pressures they feel are different. Their life experiences are different. Just like employees in the workplace. I can't just say it worked for John, so it's going to work for David. It just doesn't work that way. It's such a fascinating field. Go ahead.
Yeah, two very quick comments on what you said. So students did tell us that they needed more time with some of the tasks. And when I used to run some seminars at the University of Brighton for management students, I taught them for 10 weeks, and we used Lego every time, from beginning to end. The first time it was tough for them to get it, but by the 4, 5, 6 week 6, they were like two. They were like quicker than me in building their Lego models and communicated what they needed to communicate. So what I'm trying to say here is that the time we have in learning is really important, either in a business or the university, whatever the context. When you do something a few times, people will get it. But like you said, if you don't have a lot of time, it's better to go with something they know, like the deck of cards. Everyone has played cards, I think. And if I have half an hour, I don't need to explain a board game. I cannot do that in half an hour,
Right.
So I'll go with a deck of cards that is easier, and we can brainstorm quickly. If you give me half a day, then okay, we can go into a board game,
I know. That's someone had said something about could I do a presentation on something? It was like I had 20 minutes. I'm like, I don't know, I can do 2 days. I can't do 20 minutes because it's, there's a lot here, and it can get complex. I love the idea that you brought the Legos into it. And then you think about how could we approach that with a scaffolding of just increasing the complexity of the Legos over time, right? Yeah. And
they did increase on their own in a way. Yeah. Because the students got confident in using the Lego, and they knew the pieces were the same every week. So I had these little bags that had the same pieces every week. So they got to know the pieces, and they got to find new ways to use them, right? So the models they built with the Legos to communicate ideas with each other were getting better in a way. And they were getting quicker. I would give them a minute and they would be ready in 30 seconds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was fascinating to see. Their efficiency in building Legos,
they were processing it. They're processing it outside of class. What could we have done differently next time? That's really good, because that's keeping them engaged with that information and the content. I like it.
Yeah, and it's all about scaffolding, like you said. When you give people a really difficult task, then they're gonna get some anxiety. But when you start slow and you build it, then okay, they're gonna be fine. They're gonna follow you,
Yeah.
And I briefly want to go back to what you said about being easy. And that's something the students always said. This is tiring. It's fun, but it's tiring. It takes a lot of cognitive effort to actually play a board game or play with the cards or play with the Lego. So it's not about making it easy. It's about making it more interactive, in my opinion.
Right. That's
maybe a bit more open. Maybe a bit more open as well, because you need to communicate when you play a game. I don't know,
Right.
maybe.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing that I think is a disservice in mindsets, is that if we're talking about play in games, easy comes up right next to that, and that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about it should be challenging. We should have to solve. We should have to discuss. We should have to collaborate. I shouldn't be able to figure this all out just on my own, because life doesn't work that way. And
Yeah.
so it should be challenging, because that's I was interviewing a colleague, James Bishop, a few days ago, and he said a phrase that has been resonating with me, that learning happens at the edge of comfort. And so right when I'm at that edge of getting uncomfortable, that's where learning is going to happen. Like if I push it too far, then of course we'll have the shutdown because of fear brain. But over here in the comfort zone, I'm not learning either, because I'm just being a sponge. I'm just hanging out. So, well, Vasilis, I know you've done such great work, and I know pandemic like rocked everybody's world. A lot of good things came out of it for people, and a lot of changes came out of it. But we're not to the end yet. It's not over yet. So just around the corner is another opportunity. When you look at it, you see, I've done all this already, and it fits right into this next opportunity that I have here. So wishing you all the best with that. What would you say if someone came to you and talked about gamification for students at a university, and they were saying, we'd like to start doing this? What should we know about bringing? What would you say to them?
My comment is not only for university students or people that work at the university. My comment is also for organization, because over the years, being at the university and also working with Pete Jenkins before the university, we engaged with a lot of different organizations, private businesses, the government. We've done a few things with the government that were fascinating in the UK. My advice to everyone would be start small. Start with something small, with something simple, see how that goes, and then invest on that. Don't spend a lot of money in the beginning. You will get, let's say you work for an organization, being the university or whatever it is, and you're excited about gamification and you have seen it work, you will definitely get some pushback from people in the organization. So you need to take it slow, in my opinion, do small things, and then get the ball rolling. When everyone says that, oh, this is a good idea, we can, implement it somehow. So I would say start small. If you need help from someone who has more experience in gamification and game design, get that help, but do not put them in a place where you view them as this all-knowing being, right? Because they're not. If I go into an organization, I like to work with the people and not tell them what to do. I always ask them to sort of brief me what's going on, what is the culture like, especially if I work abroad. If I work in let's say Malaysia or Thailand or even in the US or the UK, you don't know everything about the national culture, and also even if I work in Athens, which I don't live in Athens, for a business I've never engaged with, they have a corporate culture I don't know everything about.
Right.
So bring someone in, but don't view them as this all-knowing person. Use them to get feedback for your ideas. Use them to enrich your ideas, in my opinion. You are a learning officer in a business. You get someone in and ask them, I have this idea. What do you think? How can we make this better? How can we play test it? How can we prototype it? And this person will help you. Because I've seen people invite us in and then ask us, oh, what should I do? I'm like, I don't know 100% what you should do.
Right. Yeah.
Because there's a lot of nuance always. There's a lot of context that when I go into a business, I don't know about, right? I know about national cultures where competition is not a good thing.
Right.
And there are other cultures where people love it. You need to tell me about it. I don't know everything. And then prototyping, playtesting. You have a digital idea. Does it work on paper? Before you spend $10,000 or whatever it is.
Right, or a lot more, yeah.
Yeah, or a lot more, or 100,000, or build it with paper, play it with a couple of people in your organization. If it goes well, then okay, go for it. Build it and see how that goes. Iterations, have in mind, you'll have a lot of iterations, like we said. It takes time. So I would advise people to be patient, to not overlook the nuances and the details, the organizational culture, and legacy. Legacy, especially in organizations that have high turnover, is important. I start a gamification project. If I leave in 2 years, who will take that over?
Right. Good. That's really good.
Because I've seen that. I've worked with companies that are doing well with legacy. And I know games that I helped design in 2016 and they still run. And I know games that I helped design 2 years ago and they're not running. So organizations that are good with legacy usually get more value out of gamification, I feel. Because you can inherit the system from person to person, And think about these things. They might seem complicated. Take your time.
Yeah, but I'm such a big believer in prototyping and playtesting early and often, like literally draw some stick figures on some paper and have people interact with it and see where, the speed of play or components that are, because as soon as you start mapping, okay, and then this happens. And, well, how did that get there? Well, I don't know. Just put it there, right? Put it on the damn screen. I don't know how it got there, right? But it's each of those pieces that really find, and the more you do that, my belief, I have different Monica Cornetti laws of the universe, but one of those is you'll get more out of 10 minutes of putting your game idea in someone else's hands than you will 10 hours just pouring over it on your own, because they will see something that fast and you'll be like, well, of course they're right. Of course that does it right. And you're like, how did I not see that? And it's because, we're so focused in that we're not seeing the big picture. So I love it. And I love start small. It really is, try it and then make sure that, culturally, I was talking with a client yesterday and, we designed for Middle East, Asia, and South America. And then they've added a US, about doubled the people they're designing for, and most of those people for the US. And what I know is what we designed for the first group is not going to work for the US audience. It's going to be flat. I mean, it's just, and so what do we do now? We have to, do a different version, iterate. I know we have to do some more persona development, because it's not a one size fits all, because cultures are hugely different. So it's a good challenge. It's a good challenge.
It is. And I would really love for gamification and game-based learning to move beyond the one fits everything, the one fits all sort of mentality that I think it had that in the beginning. The first few years were a little bit of that. People wanted a recipe,
Right.
Give me a recipe, give me a recipe.
3 steps.
But 3 steps, 5, 6, whatever. Yeah, as long as there are steps, and I don't have to think a lot for myself. But I don't think it works that way.
No,
I think there's a lot of nuanced information you need to sort of like analyze before you reach a solution that is sustainable. That is the word I'm looking for, sustainable. Because I don't want to play it once, I want it to be something that I use for a long time.
Yeah. The legacy is so important. And I've seen that in every kind of program, though, training of any kind, a new, somebody new comes in and so they just want things to be different, and everything that was done before just gets left to the side. And I don't know, maybe there's some good in that, maybe not, but you see a lot of what I don't want to say waste, but it is waste. I think, just pile that money you just spent, just kind of pile that on the floor in there and light a match to it. That's what we got here. You just, that's just all gone. And so it's just, as soon as we think that we can design on how choices they're going to make, we're going to fail, because they're going to make different choices. And it's just the human behavior side of it. And that behavioral psychology, it's just huge, and people rarely behave like we expect them to. Rarely, right?
That's so
So,
true.
yeah.
Yeah.
Why'd they do that? Why'd they do that? Yeah,
Yeah, that
right.
is very true. Yeah.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have a lot of assumptions when designing.
Right, exactly.
That's and
Yeah.
we shouldn't take it personally. Okay.
I know.
You know,
It's hard because
yeah, that is hard. Yeah.
yeah, you've
It is
invested
hard.
a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's exactly what happened to me when I started designing. And the feedback wasn't 100% positive. It was tough to sort of take this feedback into account. And that's another, advice, if I can call it that I would give to people. Don't take it personally.
Yeah.
Just accept the feedback, try to make the changes, improve the product that you're giving people, because you are there to serve them.
Well, yeah, they've got a problem that needs solved. So we're there to help them solve that problem. It's not about us. We take it like I always say, it's like them telling us our baby's ugly, like, ooh, ugly baby, right? And that's how we take it. We take it that personally, and it's not. It's just that that's not where we need to go with this. Yeah. So, oh, well, I'm so delighted I got to connect with you again. I hope that we get to end up live in the UK. Would you be able to travel, you think? You think it'll happen?
Yeah, I would be able to travel.
Yeah.
And
Good.
I do keep in touch with the university, with people in the gamification sort of game.
Right.
And I'd love that. Yeah, it was great connecting again. And I'd love that. I'd love to interact face to face and meet and talk about games, maybe play some.
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That would be great. Yeah, looking forward. Let's hope. Fingers crossed, let's again.
Fingers crossed. Exactly. Thank you so much for your time this afternoon. I really appreciate you. I enjoyed seeing you and wish you the very best. And I'll keep following your activities, and just really, really all success for you in the future, Vasilis. I wish you the very, very best. And I'm sure we'll connect again soon.
Thank you so much for the invitation, and see you at the conference, right?
Okay, right.
It
yes,
looks
40
great.
hours. Please come in and
yes,
hang out.
do.
People will want to talk with you, I know. So that's we February 26th through 28th, 48 hours straight. So drop in. Good. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Let's do it. Thank
okay.
you.
All right.
Have a great day.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.